Hello, welcome back to Simply Breeze. My name is Bree if you are new here, and I'm going to take you on a realistic week in my life of me working full-time, having a garden that we grow some of our own food from for preserving and eating throughout the year. So let's go into the garden now because we need to finish planting out our seedlings. Reed and I are celebrating our 1-year wedding anniversary this coming weekend. So I want to go ahead, get all of our seedlings out into the garden so that way if we need to, we can have the irrigation on, and I know everything's going to be watered. Now that the seedlings are really mature, they're getting root bound, they're getting a little stressed from being in pots, so it's time to get them up potted. And so I'm going to spend this whole week trying to get them taken care of and into the ground so that way I don't have to worry about them this weekend while we are gone. So let's go check out the garden. It is a beautiful evening. We've got a little bit of overcast skies, and it looks like a thunderstorm just missed us, which is great because it should mean that I should be able to work until it's later, and probably closer to 8. It is 7:14. I'm hoping I can make it to at least 8:15 or so. But let's take a look at the rest of our seedlings. I do have a couple in the back, but not many. They're mostly flowers, and I think there's a little bit of basil. But we need to take care of these. They are getting so stressed. Our dill looked super sad when I got home today, so I gave it a water. This peppermint plant is starting to get a little stressed. Our oregano, our spearmint is also looking a little stressed over there, and our thyme is looking fantastic, so I'm excited about that. I needed our marigolds, our calendula, our straw flowers. We have so many straw flowers this year, and I'm super excited about it because the last 2 years I've tried growing straw flowers, they just have not germinated. The germination's been really poor, so I'm really excited about the straw flowers. We've got marigolds. Our cosmos also looking stressed, really ready to come out of those pots. And then we've got some squash over there. Those will be fine. Those are I don't need to put in the ground just yet, especially because I don't know where they're going. So to be determined. They may go in pots this year, but that's okay. And then our zinnias. I have had a significant zinnia failure. So I would say about 50% of my zinnias died. I've got 6 dead ones here. I definitely threw out another one the other day, and then I have 6 living ones here, and then I think I have 1 or 2 in one of these garden beds over here. So okay, maybe I had about a 60% success rate, but that's still not great, and that's a little upsetting. But it is what it is, and we can always start more seeds. That is the other thing we're going to be doing this week, is we are going to see if we can get our beans and some of our other direct sow seeds into the ground. So now what I need to do is I need to figure out where everything is going, where I'm filling in the rest of this stuff. So let's do this. Where do I start? So the peppermint's going to go in a pot. The spearmint is going to go in a pot. So I need to water the spearmint. The thyme, okay, so those are all going to go in a pot. That's fine. So we need to put the flowers somewhere. Let's start getting the flowers and the basil figured out. Friends, I'm just going to tell you now, thank you for bearing with me because we don't get beans planted this week, and actually June 4th, I believe it was a Wednesday, and so I work in the garden with you throughout the rest of this week, and then Reed and I go away for the weekend into the mountains and have a good camping, fishing anniversary together, and then we come back and we try to get more things done in the garden. Unfortunately, rain, as you will see here soon, does impact some of my plans, which is also why we didn't get everything done in the current, I'd say, work week that this video started, but this is a very realistic look into my life. I work full-time. I also live an hour away from where I work, and so I commute to work 3 days a week. And so to and from work, I am in the car commuting 2 hours, and so by the time I get home, it's a mad scramble to get into the garden, to get dinner and be fed before it is too late, on top of just trying to get the mad dash that is spring gardening taken care of. I was wrong. It appears the storm didn't miss us. It's okay, the rain doesn't seem to be too bad. We'll adjust if necessary. So if you're ever wondering if you can do it, if gardening and cooking can fit into your schedule, I'm here to tell you it can. It just won't be pretty. But if you're willing and you're dedicated to give it a shot and it's something that you enjoy and are happy about, I'm going to tell you to go for it, because even though I am always jam-packed for time and trying to fit everything in, gardening is still my peace. It still brings me a lot of joy. So I am in the midst of trying to figure out how I am going to fit all of these plants together. I have to change up the way that I garden every year a little bit, because our sun isn't consistent in all of the spots where I have our garden beds. So some garden beds get better light than others. So it is something that I have to keep in mind when planting, which means crop rotation is difficult. So my primary focus this year is a lot of companion planting to help with that, and that will also help fight off any disease. If you plant a lot of cabbage crops together, or if you plant a lot of tomatoes and peppers together, they can breed disease, which is usually why you don't want to plant the same things in the same spot every year. However, if you have limited space or limited growing opportunity, you make do with what you have. And so this is my plan for this year, and we shall see how that plays out. Now, I did point out that I had zinnias die. I had a fair amount of plants kind of die on me. The zinnias were one of them. I don't think I had any cosmos die. I had something else die. I think I had a couple calendula die. I've had some herbs die. And honestly, I saw a video from Brie Ellis, and she actually had a neighbor who sprayed herbicide on some poison ivy next door, and they told her after the fact, and her plants had herbicide damage. And based off of like some of the things that she was showing, I am wondering if, because of the walking path that we live right next to, I feel like the HOA sprays herbicide on that grass, and I'm wondering if some of that herbicide did carry over into the garden. I don't see a whole lot of damage, but some of the damage that I'm seeing makes me wonder. I really didn't think it was gonna rain today. It's supposed to rain until 10. Oh goodness. It's really coming down now. Hello friends, it's Thursday. My workday's officially over. Yesterday we couldn't continue planting after work because the rain came and the rain stayed. I desperately tried to get as much accomplished as possible. However, we were getting rained out and I wasn't going to expose the camera to the rain. So we're going back out into the garden. More rain is on the way. Let's see what we can get accomplished before that happens. So I mentioned companion planting, and now I am trying to walk the fine line of not overcrowding my seedlings, so that way as the plants grow, they're not going to suffocate each other, and we can still have good airflow, and that will help ward off disease. If you don't have good airflow, it's very promotive. It promotes a lot of disease, and it can promote more pests. Which is another thing why companion planting is great. I'm trying to incorporate marigolds all around because pests don't like marigolds, is what I've been reading. So I'm trying to incorporate marigolds all around, but trying to figure out how to properly space everything, how big everything's going to get, while also trying to maximize space has been really tricky. So I will take you along as we progress throughout the year, and we'll see if I guessed correctly. Then I've got a bunch of little beads. So we're going to put a kohlrabi, there's technically kohlrabi here. So we can plant these decently close together. There we go. Cool. Let's do that. That. Calendula. Okay. Let's get the kohlrabi first. I don't know if I can separate these two. There's two of them. I don't know if you can see that. There's two here. I don't know if I can separate them though. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if you can see some of the damage that are on these plants right here specifically. So some of them have some browning, and I'm not 100% sure if that's related to just being a little sunburnt, so like sun damage, or if it's an herbicide damage. I'm not 100% what's going on. The plants are 100% stressed at this point because they are root bound. Don't do what I did and leave your plants in here for as long as I did. But again, time, when I have time is when things get done. And so if a plant can survive what I put it through, it's meant to survive is my philosophy. So, but I'm curious to know, have any of you seen this before? Do you have any insight as to what could this be herbicide damage that I'm suffering from? All right, so now we have these flowers and this basil that needs to be planted. We're gonna go ahead and put that with these Roma beds, with this Roma bed over here. Marigolds are great for pest deterrents when it comes to tomatoes, so I'm trying to make sure I get at least a couple marigolds interplanted with my tomatoes. Up front is going to be really interesting because the utility people are here and they're going to be in our yard. So I don't know how much more of this you're going to see, but this is a very realistic look into my life, working full-time, gardening, and living in the suburbs. Do I want to put a zinnia in here? I do. We're going to put it over there. Alright, so what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go ahead and plant one zucchini plant. I'm going to plant a pumpkin plant so it can vine this way. This spot does get sun until probably like 1 o'clock. So there should be plenty of sun for the squash. Another thing I'm focusing on this year is making sure I'm growing enough herbs. I use our basil all the time and we are getting pretty low. My goal is to make sure that I grow enough for a year's plus supply. I'd like to have a little bit of a bumper crop just in case things like damage or a bad germination year or something like that happens. So I am growing far more basil this year than I have ever grown in previous years, and I'm super excited about it. I'm really hoping I can stay on top of it, but I'm also really hoping this means that we can have enough preserved basil and oregano and spearmint and peppermint and dill this year, but only time will tell. The really fun thing about growing herbs is they don't require anything special to preserve them. I do prefer to use my freeze dryer. However, that's not necessary. Traditionally, you just hang dry herbs and they will turn out and last just fine. That is how one of my coworkers preserves her herbs, like her basil and her oregano, and she ties it up into a bunch and lets it hang in her kitchen and lets it dry out, and she has zero issues. And so if that is something you want to start with, learning how to preserve, that's a really easy method to try because it doesn't require any upfront equipment, any high upfront costs other than the seed or the seedlings that you purchase, and they're super easy to preserve with minimal effort. And just like that, we're done for the evening, and we're gonna call it a night. I need to figure out what I'm doing with all of this excess stuff because I have absolutely no idea. None whatsoever. So we gotta figure that out. It is Friday morning. Before work, I had a little bit of time before I needed to leave, so I decided to come out and harvest some of this spinach. Reed and I are going to be gone for the weekend, and I didn't want to leave this spinach all weekend with some high temperatures. We started getting into the high 80s that weekend, and so I wanted to go ahead and get some of the spinach harvested to help with stress and deter bolting if at all possible. And I just went ahead and threw the spinach into the fridge until I was ready to deal with it. Good morning, friends. It is Tuesday morning. It's the weekend has come and went, but we need to get some harvesting done, and then I also would like later tonight we're going to try and get all the planting finished. We're also going to get the irrigation completely set up to start running without our help because we are now entering some very hot days. The rain looks like it's gone for a while, and so it's time to get the automatic watering system set up. Our lettuce looks fantastic, as does our spinach. And so that's what I'm out here harvesting today, is we may have lettuce for salad and some spinach, and then the rest of the spinach we're probably gonna freeze dry. Perfect. Our radishes, though, are going to seed, and that's really upsetting because we haven't gotten any radishes. Yeah. If we have any sort of bulbs, they are incredibly tiny bulbs, so harvesting spinach is really easy, same with harvesting lettuce. So for harvesting spinach, I go ahead and I cut the stem of the leaf that I want, and I try to cut it closer to the ground than closer to the leaf. I also try to pick the outer leaves, and I try not to harvest more than 50% of the plant at a time. That will help reduce the stress of taking the foliage, because the foliage is how the plant photosynthesizes and grows and absorbs some of its nutrients and the light from the sun. Same with some of our lettuce. As I was going around and harvesting the outer leaves, it looks like some of the lettuce, I do have 2 different romaine varieties, and I'm really hoping maybe this year I can get them to produce a head, even if it's a small head. So I went around and harvested some of the outer leaves just to help. It's also a really crowded area, and I do suffer from slugs. Knock on wood, they haven't been terrible this year, so I'm hoping that is a good sign. But to help with that, I tried to trim up some of the outer leaves to help with the compactness of this area. Alright friends, it is later in the evening. This morning we picked some spinach and some lettuce and kale, but I'm done with work, and so I would like to spend the next hour getting our sprinklers finally set up. We broke 90 today finally for the first time this year, and so it is time we get our sprinkler system set up. So I have an automatic water timer. It's this one, and this one basically it can activate 2 zones, and so one of these zones is going to be for all the stuff that runs along the fence lines, and then the other zone is going to be for the garden beds and that specific hose line. And then we also have a splitter, and this is going to be so we can use a regular hose on this side of the house. And then typically in the beginning I water at least once a day, and I try to do it in the evenings just to relieve the stress that the plants went through during the day. And then I water initially for about 8 to 10 minutes. That seems like a lot, but I will slowly start to peter off once the plants get their roots to start going deeper where moisture is held on into the soil. But that's how we're starting for now. So this one that we have on the other side of the house only has 1 in and 1 out. We do still put a splitter so we can use the hose, the one that I've been hand watering everything with. So we do put a splitter on this side. However, this automatic watering unit only runs for 1 set of line. So let's get this one set up. Everything looked good on that side. I'm going to need to talk to Reed because there are some leaks coming out of the faucet. I don't know how to fix that. So it's at least set up, and I can at least manually turn it on and off for now, which is still going to be easier than hand watering everything. Now it's set up to auto. Both of these water timers have a manual start and a manual stop. So if I wanted to do an extra water but I didn't want to run a new program, I could do that instead. Okay. So now let's see if there's a leak. There is a leak. All right. Oh, There's a hole in our hose. That's really unfortunate. So we have that hole there. And then I broke this guy when we were setting up for the year. And there's clearly a hole there. Let's go see if we can find any other holes or leaks. Ouch. Okay. This looks good. That system doesn't appear to be leaking. We got it running here. It's working here. You can hear it, which is great. It's working here. It's working over here. It's working over here. And it's kinked right here. Okay. So we're gonna have to make sure that that kink, we gotta do something about that. But now that that kink is gone, this is working. All right, friends, I gorilla taped the hose. We'll see what Reed thinks when he gets home, but he's not home. But I'm running the drip system on this side of the house, and it seems to be working really, really well. That other leak, where we've got a screw blocking the hole, that one's not a permanent fix. I don't know what we're gonna do about that. So that we need to fix. So tomorrow we'll try and get the rest of these plants planted. I need to get dinner started though. So we're done for tonight. All right, we're done in the garden. We're gonna go ahead and process the spinach, the kale, the Swiss chard, and the beet greens that we harvested. My goal for this is simply to just get it preserved. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna get it washed up. We're gonna dry it off as best as we can. We're gonna put it onto freeze dryer trays, and we're gonna pop the freeze dryer trays into the freezer to pre-freeze, and then they're going into the freeze dryer. I have this huge bag of spinach, and some of these spinach leaves are just absolutely glorious. But there's dirt on them, so it's time to give everything a good wash. This is my second harvest of this gardening season, and it feels so good. It may be a small harvest. Really, it's not half bad, but the harvests are only going to get more and more abundant as time goes on. But I figured might as well, while I have the energy, go ahead and get these preserved. So I wanted to thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you have any gardening tips that you would love to share, I'd love to know and I'd love to learn. I'm always trying to expand my knowledge. And if you enjoyed this, please let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this content. I will see you all the next time we are in the garden or we are cooking up something in the kitchen. Bye.